Hey guys, before we start this week's episode, I wanted to thank everyone who's been leaving these amazing reviews on iTunes and everywhere you listen to podcasts. This week, I want to give a shout out to Dave Swanner. He says, 5 stars, keep up the great work. See you in Vegas for the Nomad Summit. By the way, guys, it's Labor Day weekend. It's going to be September 1st through the 3rd. So starting August 31st through September 3rd. Check it out at nomadsummit.com. Dave says, after listening to 100 plus Travel Like a Boss podcasts, I'm finally getting around to leaving a review, invaluable insights into the thoughts, lives, and businesses of hundreds of entrepreneurs. Love listening to these inspiring stories. Thanks so much, Dave. And thank to you for leaving a review. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you haven't left a review yet, please go and do it right now. Enjoy this week's episode.
Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hey everyone, this is Johnny and welcome to episode 202 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I am here in Tiraspol, Transnistria with Roman Maximov. All right. So what is Transnistria? Where are we?
So Transnistria is an unrecognized country between Ukraine and Moldova. And officially that was part of Moldovan USSR, but never made it to a Republic Moldova. So in 1990s we proclaimed independence from Moldova, and we became a self state.
So some people compare Transnistria to North Korea. Any similarities? Any differences?
Well, not really, because you're still allowed to make business here, and you have nice restaurants in the center, and it's open for a tourist, and it's getting even more open. So if you cross the border, you can get up to 30 days, if I'm not mistaken. So you can stay here, and it's not that close for foreigners. And people can go outside of Transnistria, so all of the people can just leave the country, no problem.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit strange where for a country that's not technically a country, a lot of people choose to stay. It's not like, I mean, I would imagine that, let's say, the US or somewhere all of a sudden became non-recognized by the rest of the world and was kind of in this weird situation. I would think a lot of people would just move, especially if you have freedom of movement. But it seems like a lot of people are proud of where they are. And a lot of people just stay for many other reasons.
Well, there are several reasons why people stay. Some people just enjoy living here because it's a very simple life. And if you have opportunity to move, you have opportunity to move to Moldova, for example, but it's you have to rent apartment there, but they have free apartment here, so why bother to move there? And the economy situation is not any better there. It's the same level. It's post-Soviet. So they decided to stay here. They decided to create family here, and stay. Especially if they have a stable job here, why bother moving?
So you mentioned having a free apartment. What do you mean by that? How do they have free housing?
Many people have, it's not a big issue here. So there are not much, you saw it today. We walked in the street. There are not much homeless people because you have your own apartment from or either, grandparents, or it's not expensive to buy here one. So some people go work in Moscow for several months or several years, and they go back and buy an apartment or build a house even.
How much would a typical, let's say a 1-bedroom apartment be here in?
Yeah, sorry to interrupting, but it's I don't really know. The prices are changing, and I can check. I can give you this information later, but I don't remember the exact numbers for the apartments here.
But it's going to be significantly less than other places. Let's say like St. Petersburg, or Ukraine, or
way less.
Okay.
It's way less. Moscow has some outrageous prices for apartment for living, and here's very cheap. Yeah.
So like if someone had $30,000, they can buy a place.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, also, when you said that a lot of people have apartments or houses that were passed down by the grandparents, were those apartments given to them during the old USSR times, as they did in other countries of the USSR?
Well, for example, in my case, my grandmother, she had apartment in the center. She had 2 rooms apartment in the center, but now she passed away. And then, so my mother, she sold this apartment in center, and she bought a 1-room apartment in another area of Tiraspol, which is Tiraspol is very small. So you can have like 5 minutes journey to the center from my apartment, but I live in a suburban area. And the edge of Tiraspol. So, so I have apartment, and my mother saved some money by doing that.
Okay. So, yeah, I actually did notice that there was, there's no homelessness. It didn't seem like there was much crime here. And it seems like from an outside point of view that this unrecognized state would be full of people on the streets, full of crime, full of, criminal activities. And people warn you that it's really dangerous here. In fact, I've had multiple people warn me not to go to Transnistria because it's unsafe for Americans, it's unsafe for travelers, and it's kind of an ungoverned country. But it doesn't really seem like that.
Well, propaganda works both ways. So for people from here, from Transnistria, many people warned me. For example, my grandmother, she warned me not going to Poland or not speaking Russian there because they're very Russophobic there. And then and people outside of Transnistria, for some foreigners, they warned to not going to Transnistria because of mafia and some other crime, high rate of crime, but it's actually not true. People are people, and it's very safe here. It's almost zero crime. Police works fine here. And everything taken care of.
Yeah, actually, when I first arrived, I was a bit worried. So as I was walking from the bus station to the hostel, I thought, okay, I'm going to get, there's a big chance I'm going to get robbed. And there's these 2 kind of, younger guys. They're probably like 19 or something. One looks like he probably does drugs. The other one, looks kind of like a kind of a gangster as well, but not like a gangster, but like just someone who's kind of, up to no good. And one of them, when I passed him, he was like, hey, what's up? And he like tried to shake my hand, and I backed off, and I was like, hey, what's up? Thinking I got to stay away from this guy, because if if I shake his hand, he might, have a knife in the other hand or rob me. And just a day later, I'm walking around and I see kind of, similar people, or just kind of the whole city and the whole village, all the villages surrounding, some of the villages surrounding. And I realized these guys probably were not going to rob me at all. They're probably just so used to it being such a small town that they're just used to saying hello to people. And then they see a foreigner, they're interested. So they were probably like genuinely like, hey, what's up? What are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly. There was the only reason why they came up to you, because you look different. So they decided to just say hi to you and see what's gonna happen.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. But I'm sure crime, like reputations come from somewhere. Sometimes there's, people are falsely scared, right? There's propaganda. For example, in, Lviv, there's a bar that the password to get inside is Slava Ukrainia, which means glory to Ukraine. And you were telling me that, was it your grandmother that was like warning you against it, or like about going to Lviv and speaking Russian, or who was it?
Yeah, I generalized, but it's many people, especially old people, who are really the only thing they do is they're just watching TV constantly, especially the channel number 1 in Russian channel number 1. And so they said that almost every restaurant you have to say this Slava Ukraini, which is not true, which is far away from true. And this is actually the only restaurant that they have in Ukraine that you're supposed to say that is just touristic attraction.
And it's literally a tourist trap. It's almost like saying every restaurant in the US, girls wear orange pants and these like Hooter tops. And it's like, no, it is a tourist trap called Hooters. And it's doesn't mean the entire country like forces every single person to say glory to Ukraine if you want to eat.
Yeah, it's for that reason. That's why we outside of Transnistria we used to be called we are called like a North Korea, because so many people are misunderstand the outside world of Transnistria, and they never travel, and they're afraid of go outside of Transnistria because they just feed in the propaganda that they watch constantly 24 hours on the TV. So for these people, I just wish to travel more and to just see more people outside. And it's actually good that Transnistria is getting more open for foreigners, because now the people can interact with tourists, not even bothering going outside, and just travel inside of.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that. And it seems like people are really genuinely interested in meeting tourists, because it's really not common. And there's a lot of places in the world that are not well traveled. Like, for example, there's smaller towns or villages in Thailand that they don't see very many tourists. But here, I think it's way less. I think they see, like, even the capital city, the big city, I think the number of tourists compared to really any other capital, really probably in the world, it's like way less people come through here. And one of the reasons why I know that I could feel it is I stayed at the only hostel in the center of the city. So, you would think it'd be the most popular place. I was literally the only person there these last 2 days. And I've never once in my life been to the kind of, the most popular hostel and not seen even a single other person.
And this is the summertime, so you can imagine in wintertime I have no job. I have one tourist come in a month, and so yeah, this is exactly. But people in generally, I think you get the expression that people here are hospitable, because, for example, we went to the market, and what did they do? They gift you the food, some food from the market, which costs here. It's very cheap. It costs nothing, but they give it away. So
yeah. So this was actually one of the nicest travel experiences I've had in these past 10 years of going around the world. I've met very friendly people before, but this is the first time ever I was at basically a farmer's market where they're selling fruits and vegetables. And I pointed at, I think the peaches, and I said, "Oh, look, they're selling peaches." And I took a photo, and instead of, sometimes people get angry, at you taking photos, this older lady, this grandma, we call her, babushka, in Russian. Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, take a photo of me." So she wanted to pose with her peaches. Yeah. And then I don't even know how it happened, but we were like, "Oh, let's take a photo together." And then she hands me a whole peach, and says, "Please, have it." And, she doesn't want any money for it. It wasn't like some way to get me to buy more. It was really, she's like, "Oh, please, eat some of the peaches that she probably grew in her backyard." And if that wasn't it, then she starts, scooping up a bag full of, currants, black currants. Yeah. And the peach, I'm like, okay, this is kind of a big piece of fruit to give someone. It's not like giving someone a small, cherry or something, or berry, oh, taste it. But it's like a whole peach. And then she gave us a bag full of black currants and was like, "Please take it."
Yeah, to your health, it's a good vitamin. So yeah, take it.
Yeah, and that was actually really surprising too, that the reason why she wanted to give it to us is because it had a lot of vitamins in it. Mm-hmm. It really felt like she was my Russian grandma.
Yes. And believe me, Russian grandma, you can't be starving. You can go to, for example, my grandma. We mentioned her before. Yeah, she's paranoid. She's watching a lot of television, but I always go from her apartment full. And it's a lot of vitamins and meat always.
Yeah. And the thing is, this grandma probably doesn't make a lot of money. She probably lives a pretty simple life. And I'd be, willing to bet it's she probably lives off of a few $100s a month at the most.
Yeah, I think most of the people, here average, they make $200 a month, and, but they live simple life, and you saw the prices. It's very cheap, so you can still survive, and you can even save, money for some products. You can have a good phone and a computer back home with internet. So that's enough. And you don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay any bank loan. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how much the prices were. I remember the fruit was really cheap. I bought a couple 100 grams of walnuts. Do you remember how much it was per kilo? Or
I remember, yeah, so 8 rubles per 100 grams.
So that's exactly 50 cents.
Yeah.
So for 1 kilo would be $5, which means 1 pound would be $2.50. I think that is outrageously cheap compared to I think if you go to like nuts.com or something, it's like $16 per pound, for walnuts. And here they were fresh. They were probably the best walnuts I've ever had.
Yeah, and this is not the right time. So it's even before it's going to get cheaper. The price is going to get cheaper in 2 months. It's going to be like 3 rubles per 100 grams. Yeah.
Yeah. So, fruits and vegetables super cheap here. I would imagine that apartments are even cheaper than we imagine, like what we quoted.
Yeah.
Cost of living here is probably like nothing. Like how much does it cost to take like a bus somewhere?
It's $3.50.
And in dollars, what is that?
Oh, it's
divided by 16.
20 cents. Yeah, let's say.
Yeah. But the only thing that actually isn't that cheap, actually, it's cheap, but it's not. I know it's like overpriced for what it is, are the restaurants. And that's probably because people don't really go to restaurants here that often.
Yeah, it's not a culture of going out. So if you go out, it's a special occasion here, or So some people go out just only once a year for some special occasion again, and yeah.
And honestly, it really shows because this is the capital, so this is the biggest city in the whole country, and there's really like. I honestly think, I'm like, no, without exaggeration, I think there were 5 restaurants for an entire city, an entire capital, which to me is insane. Like, I've never seen that anywhere in the world.
And you saw, we were surrounded, the people that, you see the way they dress. So that was some special day for them that they went out, outside the restaurant.
Yeah. So a lot of them, I think they're like celebrating like a birthday or, something like they were dressed nice, like everyone sitting inside were like families, but it's really strange where this actually is the thing that's probably most fascinating to me is I've only eaten at 2 restaurants here so far, and I didn't realize they were both owned by the same owner, the same chain. Yeah. So the first was what?
First one, La Placinte, which is Moldovan traditional food restaurant, and the next one was Andy's Pizza, very American-sounding name. Andy's Pizza, the best pizza in town.
Yeah, so Andy's Pizza, when I first heard it, I thought it was a joke. I thought it'd be this tiny little shack, maybe at most like a Pizza Hut. But when we walked by and actually went inside, I thought, wow, this is really nice.
Yeah, you can have a full meal there. You can have you had some soup, yeah? You had soup.
But then, like, not even just the food, it was just like the decor inside was really nice. And they even had like a whole kids play area, like a full bar. It was just like a really nice looking restaurant, like pretty upscale as well. And when I looked at the menu, I was looking at the photos thinking, these photos are so nicely taken. This menu is like so well put together. And I was like, this either is the same owner or the same, where they use the same printing company, the menu making company, as the place I had last night. And he said,
turns out it's the same owner.
It is.
Yeah.
Do you know if they own any other businesses?
Yeah, I know. For example, Seven Fridays restaurant is very popular here. I always recommend people, and I used to work there. That's how I get involved in this business, because I was always wondering why people are coming, because the place was really, it is popular between foreigners. So Seven Fridays belong to another guy, which is actually connected to the government, which is actually connected to sheriff. So it always comes up to sheriff. So if you want to make any business here, any new business, you have to split. You have to give a percentage to sheriff, or yeah.
So sheriff is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. He's pretty much the sheriff. That's his nickname. And this guy owns pretty much all of Transnistria. Or is it just the capital, Tiraspol, or does his reach go, beyond the capital and throughout the country?
Yeah, it goes way beyond the capital. So all Transnistria is talking about economy, and now recently it's even in politics, because the president is pro-sheriff. So it's their guy. So belong to sheriff, and they own supermarkets, they own gas stations. First, you can see if you're coming from Chisinau to Tiraspol, from Moldovan capital to Transnistrian capital, you see the Sheriff Stadium. It's a huge stadium. It's about three stadiums in one complex, and then swimming pool, all in the same complex, tennis court, gym, and we saw today sauna advertisement as well. So then, networking. We have different networking than Moldovan use, belong to Sheriff. And
Networking as in like, internet infrastructure.
yeah. Internet and then cell phone as well. So, and then even the Quint factory, which is, the best alcohol, is number one export from Transnistria, belong to Sheriff as well.
And I think we walked by an apartment complex that was owned by Sheriff.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, this is nice apartments, still under renovation, still under construction. First floor are supposed to be businesses, but all of the businesses will belong to Sheriff. And the rest of the building is going to be apartments for sale.
And you're saying that they're going to build roads as well, or have they done that before?
They're doing it. They're working on that already. Yeah.
So like this isn't the government doing it. It's literally some guy. He's basically like an oligarch, super rich guy who owns all these businesses, who's building not only, like restaurants and I'm assuming bars and, gyms, gas stations, supermarkets, apartment buildings, but he's also building infrastructure. He's building wireless communication. He's building roads, and it's all under the Sheriff brand.
Well, actually, he's just started to invest in the infrastructure because it's been 25 years Sheriff exists. And he just started to invest his money in infrastructure for some reason. And every year the celebration of Sheriff, so the birthday, the birthday of Sheriff is well celebrated in the center, and they usually invite some Russian pop culture singers, and they spend lots of money on that as well.
Have you ever watched the Netflix documentary about the drug dealer from Colombia? The show's called Narcos.
No, I haven't. No.
Pablo Escobar. He has a very similar story where, regardless of how he made his money, he built a lot of infrastructure, a lot of like schools and playgrounds and, soccer fields for the residents, especially in the poor areas of Colombia. And people loved him. They celebrated his birthday. He had a lot of ties, with, some of the politicians. And really he had the support of a lot of people in the country, especially poor people who, couldn't really afford, a lot of these things without him. This almost kind of reminds me of the Sheriff guy.
Well, the only difference between this story and the Transnistrian Sheriff guy is Sheriff guy is actually hidden. If you Google Sheriff guy, if you Google his name, Victor Gushan, you just can see the only one picture of him sitting in an office. And he's not a public figure at all. He has directors of every business that he owns. They are public figures. But Sheriff is very hidden. He's probably now have an apartment somewhere in Spain. It's just my assuming. But you don't see him walking or riding his car outside in Transnistria. Never.
Wow. So he's everywhere in Transnistria, yet nowhere.
Yet, yes. Yeah.
That is so crazy. And I don't know if we were describing this good enough, because I actually remember when I first arrived to Transnistria, somebody had told me, they're like, oh, look, there's a Sheriff gas station. You're going to be seeing a lot of his name. And I thought, I see a lot of Shell gas stations or Chevron, or a lot of, companies own a lot of different things, like Anheuser-Busch, like the beer company owns a lot of other things. They own like liquor companies. And, it's not that big of a thing. That happens all the time in the US. But here it is on another level. It is like, imagine if Anheuser-Busch, who owns Budweiser, also owns, all the vodka brands, all the, whiskey brands, all the like liquor brands, then owns all the supermarkets that distribute all of them. So whatever supermarket you go to, whether it's Albertsons or Ralph's or Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, they own them, and and then imagine the gym you go to is owned by them. The apartment you live in is owned by them. The road you drive on is owned by them. It's like, imagine if Amazon just took over every single possible business that you've ever touched, ever sat in, every restaurant you've ever eaten at, everything. It is like, I don't think this could happen or has happened in any other country.
It is on another level, but it's only 500,000 people living here in the entire Transnistria. So it's very interesting, but it was just the man in the right place in the right time. So in the 90s, when USSR collapsed, nobody even thought of making his own business. And the only people who start own business, they were criminals. Those people with guns, literally. And the sheriff, he was policeman. He used to protect them. He used to give them protection for making their dirty money and dirty business. And then eventually he decided to stop them all. So he cleaned Transnistria out of the criminals. Now it's really zero criminality here. But he built his own monopoly. So now it reminds me, what's it called? The game Sims games. He even invested money to build a central church here in center, nice one. And then, now he's investing money in infrastructure. But he keeps it, I wouldn't say he really invests money in young people. So he keeps it kind of low level. He doesn't want, he really doesn't want any young people staying here because it's really easy to control, as we call them, babushkas, right? Grandparents, their life. Yeah.
Like the older generation. And then the fact that you just brought up that he owns the church is also insane.
Yeah.
Even more insane, there's a huge building, probably the biggest government building equivalent to, let's say, like Parliament or like the White House. And then just to the left of it is a new building, the exact same size, that's coming up. And I was looking at it thinking, what is this? And it's a sheriff development.
Yeah, it's a new building. It's a very interesting shape. It's kind of almost round, but kind of new and nice. But nobody knows the purpose of this building, so he just invested money in another building to make the center looks nice. But nobody knows the purpose, and we don't. If it's gonna be offices, we don't need much offices here because it's not much business. If it's going to be their office, the sheriff main office, they don't need much offices as well because they already have a big building for their offices. And right next to it, if you walk right next across the road, you can see the Russian hotel, which has belonged to. It's called Hotel Russia, which has belonged to sheriff as well, and it's the fanciest hotel in the city.
And there's a karaoke place inside of that, I think, too.
Yes, yeah. And they have, what's it called? Gambling, casino place inside of so casino. Nobody goes to casino ever here, but they own it. So, most of the best my assumption is just money laundering.
So it is insane. I thought we were done talking about all the different businesses sheriff owns, but you just brought up luxury hotel and a casino.
Yeah.
Like, just the fact that anyone would even own, like Donald Trump owns hotels, and it's already like, oh wow, that's a big thing. Or like Steve Wynn owns casinos, and that's a big thing. Yeah. For someone to own both and then own all these other things we talked about.
And keep in mind, it's a small country where everybody makes $200 a month. It's not everybody, but most of the people, the majority of people make this.
Yeah. And this building that we're talking about, what's that government building right next to it?
House of the Soviets, the Dom Sovetov.
This is a huge building. Like, I want you guys to imagine probably the biggest building you've ever seen in your life. Or if you've been to like literally the White House. It is that big. And the fact that nobody has been told, nobody even has a clue what this building is for. And it looks like it's like 98% done. How long have they been building this?
About 3 years, which is fast for Eastern Europe. Usually new projects they build forever here. They asking for more and more money. If government gives money for a building, they ask for more and more money, and the money launderer, and they keep this money in their pockets. So that's why the building takes forever. But this one, fast. That was built very fast.
And it's beautiful. if you guys haven't seen my video tour of Transnistria, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. Maybe a day in Transnistria, or a day in I don't know, maybe a day in not a country.
Yeah.
Something.
We can think of the name.
Yeah, but if you haven't watched that video yet, pause this, find it on my blog, johnnyft.com, or find it on my YouTube channel. Just search Johnny FD Transnistria. Again, actually, probably just search Johnny Transnistria. It'll come up. But it's so beautiful. It is giant. It is gorgeous. And there is no freaking way that a building this size, of this magnitude, would be built and nobody, like, imagine in your hometown, your city, or your country, and basically in the capital next to the White House. Imagine right next to the White House, like directly right next door, so you can see both, in one view if you're across the street. Imagine right next to the White House, somebody builds a building exactly as grand, just as big, just in a different color. It's more of like what color would you describe that? Like a...
Oh, there was a kind of gray, but
like a little bit of wine color.
Soft red color, yeah.
It's like a burgundy wine. It's really nice. Imagine someone built a burgundy wine colored White House, just as grand, just as big, and has been building it for the last 3 years, and not a single person in the entire country knows the purpose of this building. Yeah. And it's owned by the monopoly that owns everything.
And of course, if people know that it's built by monopoly, people don't even want to know why they're building, because they're like, oh, it's their business, it's not our business. You know what I call Transnistria? It's when people ask me, is it still communist? I say, no, it's capitalism without competition.
And this is so true. And I think this is really shown in the restaurant selection. Literally the only restaurants in the country, in the capital city, are owned by basically the same two people. And I thought, at first I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna go to these tourist traps, that like these chain restaurants that are, let me find a local place. So I asked around and said, where can I get some local, mamalinga, which is like a polenta dish, a very traditional village cornmeal polenta dish. And, people were telling me like, oh yeah, you go to La Placinta place. And, and when I went there, I realized this is a chain. This is like owned by, some other companies. And then we went to Andy's Pizza. And I was a bit disappointed, thinking, did I go to these restaurants? Until I realized there are no other choices. Yeah. There are no mom and pop restaurants in this entire city.
Yeah. This is exactly true. And it's another reason, because it's not a restaurant culture, as we mentioned before, and people just not ready to spend their money, go every day and go to restaurants, and just waiting for foreigners. And foreigners, you don't see much foreigners here as well. So it's not a good investment. Usually people do it on the side. So they have their major business and they do it on the side. Oh, let's have a restaurant. Let's have a small restaurant. So they open up the restaurant here.
So are there these like is there a place I can go, where it's just like some family owned place?
It's usually much better selection outside of Tiraspol. So if you go in the villages, you can still have this, but they're more Soviet-looking places to eat. Yeah, to family-owned.
So today, actually, I don't think we mentioned this, but Roman was my tour guide. So actually, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've been working as a tour guide last 3 years. Before that, I finished my studies. And I went to Seven Fridays. It's one of the major restaurants here, as we mentioned before. And I worked there for 2 years. And I was, by the same time, I was trying to learn English. And I was surprised how many foreigners in the summertime in such a small country, in such a small city, are coming to the Seven Fridays. And I was trying to practice my English. And I realized that people are interested in this area, and I understood why people are interested in this area. So that's how I get involved in making my own tour, and I switched from the waiter to a tour guide here. And it's actually gave me much opportunity to meet many people. So I traveled without traveling. That's what I call it. And yeah,
I love it. And actually, this is the one country I've ever been to, the one place where people really want to travel without traveling. They want to meet people from other countries. And this really showed when I logged into Couchsurfing. And I honestly didn't really have any intention of ever staying on someone's couch, because I figured, I can afford at least a hostel, if not like an Airbnb or a hotel. But I chose the hostel because I wanted to meet people. And when I realized there'd be no one here to meet, I looked on Couchsurfing and I saw there were so many people wanting to host. And I really think, like, you could tell, like, they want to host people just because they want to meet people from other countries.
Exactly.
And it's like, I've never seen this anywhere else. Like, it's the amount of people per capita. I mean, like, this is a small country, but the percentage of people who actually are on Couchsurfing wanting to host someone is mind blowing compared to anywhere else.
We've had tourists staying here for longer than one day or one night. We've had tourists staying here for a week, for example, and they're eventually becoming famous here. So they for the last day of their week staying, they walk in the central street and they shaking hands to everybody because it's easy to get famous here. If you just have to go out, you just have to interact with young people and one will tell to another that, it's a foreigner here because it's unusual.
And this is the capital. This is the biggest city.
Yeah, this is the biggest city.
By far.
Yeah. You still, it can sound like we're describing a village now, but you can still have a nice restaurant and with good drink in the center and the terrace. But then you have these people around you that not used to see foreigners around.
Well, it's funny because before we met, you said that you had saw me the day before walking down the street.
Yeah. I saw you. I was sitting there with my friend in the bar and kind of the student place, and I saw you walking there, and I can see you from far away. You not look like local people. Yeah. So I saw you walking.
The fact that you noticed some random guy who you hadn't met yet. At the time I didn't even book the tour yet.
I just saw your profile picture on the Facebook. Yeah, I remember you wrote me hi. That's but you didn't book the tour.
And the fact that like you just randomly were like, oh, that's a face I've never seen in this city, and then you remembered that, speaks a lot. Like that would never happen in Toronto or definitely not New York or LA or even like a smaller city. You would not notice that someone wasn't from there. That would only happen in a very small town or village. Yet this is a big place.
Yeah. Relatively, comparingly, Chisinau is not that big as well, and it's not much thing to do there. It's people call it the most boring city in entire Europe. But when you return back home to Tiraspol from Chisinau, you feel it. You feel like you don't have much people. You have way less people than in Chisinau.
I've been to Chisinau, which is the capital of Moldova, and you're right. It is so boring. There was nothing to do in this entire city. It reminds me, the only other place I've ever been that reminded me of the same was Vientiane in Laos, where it's a big city. It's the capital of Laotia or Lao. And it was exactly the same. Like, yeah, there's some restaurants, there's some bars, I guess, but there's no people and there's nothing to do. Like the top 10 things to do are there's nothing. I think it's the only TripAdvisor that only has like 4 things on the top 10.
Yeah. You just can go to winery, get some wine and get drunk. That's what what's the local people do.
Yeah. Luckily, the wineries in Moldova are amazing. Really beautiful, top quality wine, cheap, and just really beautiful. And then here we have Kvint. Can we talk about that?
Kvint, yeah. Kvint is a factory which is now owned by Sheriff. We couldn't even skip to mention this. But Kvint is it's cognac. They produce cognac and vodka, and they have. How much was that bottle that you bought? 50 rubles, right? So that was $2 per bottle. Oh, you're preparing the glasses now.
Yeah, so I figured while in Transnistria, we have to have this Klint cognac, which is technically a brandy because I think you can only legally call it cognac if it's if it's made in that region of France.
Nobody cares in Transnistria.
They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They
call it cognac here.
Actually, it says cognac on the bottle.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I've heard of this, and I actually just opened it so I can smell it already. It smells so good. Mm-hmm. But 3 weeks ago, I met a guy, I think I was in Bulgaria or something, and he had said, "Oh, you're going to Ukraine. You need to stop by Transnistria." And I said, "What is that?" And he told me the story about this. It's a country that doesn't exist, that it's between Moldova and Ukraine, and it is basically as close as you can get to USSR today, 2018. And he said they went to a bar and they were told that if you want to sit down, you need to get bottle service or table service. And they thought, no, like, I'm not going to spend $100 on bottle service. This is just a, Tuesday night or something. Yeah. But they decided to look in the menu and they realized, hey, I can get a bottle of vodka for like $6
for nothing. Yeah.
At a bar. So they ordered a bottle of vodka. And the other guy was like, oh, I actually want the whiskey. So the other guy ordered a bottle of whiskey. And then someone else was like, oh, I heard they're really famous for their brandy here. Let's get a bottle of cognac. So for a total of like $21, they got 3 bottles of alcohol.
Yeah.
And they were having like the time of their life. They were surrounded by beautiful girls and they're drinking all this, stuff. And, everyone's staring at them, of course, because, they're 3 foreign guys, with 3 bottles of liquor. And then, they said that the most remarkable part of it was the brandy, the cognac was so good that one of the guys, he was from the UK, decided he wanted to bring back as much as he can carry. So he actually threw away all of his clothes out of his luggage.
Have it happened before? Yeah, it's absolutely true because I remember French. The last time I had 6 French tourists, and they would really, literally threw their clothes from their luggage, and they bought as many cognac bottle as they can. So they fit them all.
Well, we're gonna give it a shot. We're actually drinking in plastic cups, so this is gonna be simulated.
Yeah.
But this is my first sip.
Yeah.
Let's smell it first.
You put me at like 100, I guess, here.
Is that a double shot?
It's
Probably
a double shot I have, yeah.
Well, let's see how it is.
Because I'm local. I can handle it.
So, a funny story is the first time I ever had alcohol was when I was like pretty late in life. I started drinking really late. I think I was like 18. I went to a nightclub and this guy I knew who was like 10 years older than me, he ordered a bottle of, I think it was either Hennessy or Remy Martin XO, which is pretty expensive. I think it was, $150 a bottle or something. A couple $100 a bottle. And at that point, and it was a cognac. I assumed for the first 2 years of my clubbing life, and I would go clubbing every weekend, I thought everybody drank cognac at clubs. And it turns out it was only these like Asian gangsters who would do that. And drinking this right now with you, this is I haven't had cognac since then, and it just reminds me of that experience.
Remind me of the story, yeah.
Hello, welcome. So please come join our podcast.
Yeah.
Say hello.
I'm sorry, I just feel not good. I'm sorry.
You already had.
So we just had some people walking on us, and they see us sitting here with a bottle of Clint open, drinking while talking to this mic. So you've had this a lot of times. Have you had any of the other brands like Remy Martin or Hennessy or other brands of brandy?
But yeah, why spend more when you can get that cheap one, and it's very good quality.
So without exaggeration, this is probably the best cognac I've ever had in my life.
Oh, really?
I haven't had cognac in many years, but I've had all the top ones. I've, like the VSOPs, even the XOs. And then I actually drank a lot of cheap brandy in university. It was E&J, which was whatever the cheapest one was. I think it was a bottle of it was like $13, and we'd only drink it because it was so cheap, and it was pretty terrible. Mm. So this stuff, without exaggeration, is delicious. We're drinking it straight.
Yeah, I like how it goes. It's really soft in your mouth, but it still has all kinds of nice smell and the strongness of this.
It's really smooth.
Yeah.
But to be fair, this isn't the cheapest one. This is the 5
This
year.
is 5 years, but it's come on, it's 50 rubles.
This is the VSOP.
You can get cheaper here. Yeah, if you travel on a budget, you can get cheaper. So you can still find a way to get drunk here.
So, okay. But this is also the small bottle. This is, how big is this?
0.3.
I don't know what that means. That's basically a 0.3 liters. Or
which is 300 grams, 300 milligrams, right?
Okay.
And then,
So I think this is like, this isn't like a small flask, but it's a pretty small bottle. It's like probably half the size or
so you can have 6 shots with this. This is easy.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
6 shots.
So yeah, it's not a big bottle, but it was, you said how much was it? I don't remember.
300. How much? 50 rubles. Or even less than 50 rubles.
was it
I think it was 35 rubles.
I think it was 35 rubles, which is, it was like $2 or $3. It was very cheap.
Very cheap, yeah. $1.5.
So for a full size bottle of this, like the 750 ml, how much would this be?
You pay in between of 50 and then 70 rubles. Yeah.
So like basically, what, $4?
$4, yeah. But believe me, the quality is still the same. So you don't have to pay more. The quality is the same.
Okay. And then if you wanted the cheapest one, how much is it for the big bottle?
Oh, the cheapest one is 50 cents bottle, really. Like the cheapest small bottle, it's $1 bottle.
It's
$1.
It's crazy.
Yeah. 20 rubles, $1.
And it's actually in a glass bottle. It's really tasty. I'm really tempted to bring some with me, but I can't because I'm flying Wizz Air carry-on only.
Oh,
So
sucks.
I know. But it's probably a good thing because then I'm not carrying this with me.
Yeah.
But the Kvint,
Kvint, yeah. Kvint, yes.
Kvint is real. It's worth it to come here really just to taste this. Don't come here for restaurants, but do come here just to see it for yourself. I would say if you came for just a day, which a lot of people do, and you did like a day trip and you just looked around the center, you'd be very disappointed. You'd be like, oh, it's not very interesting. But I'm really happy we went on that tour, and I'm really happy the tour was as long as it was because I really got to see a lot of Transnistria. I really liked going to the village. We actually took a marshutka, like this little minivan, into a village.
The village called Kitskane, which is only 10 minutes outside of Tiraspol, but you can see already it's a big change. You can see the real village life. And the city center, the village center, it's abandoned restaurant and the shop that looks exactly like it used to look in Soviet days.
Yeah, and then we saw there's a huge monastery there that was actually really beautiful.
Yeah, big complex of monastery. Yes, like three churches inside of it, and a bell you can climb on it.
Yeah, so climbing the bell tower with some beautiful views. They had a little winery inside the monastery, which was unfortunately closed.
Yeah, just the only priest can have the only one priest can have access to it. So he's always on his hangover.
And I wish we came on a Saturday because they actually have a free village lunch, right?
Yeah. They serve food for people, and you can go there and help yourself, and they pour you wine. The priests take care of you.
That's amazing. I think that's such a nice community event. And I would love to just be there, having food and wine with, basically like locals who may not have ever met a foreigner.
Yeah, that's true. And it's actually, you've been here you were on a 1-day tour. But if you want to see more, if you want to see like the north of Transnistria, we take care of you. So we take a car and we go in the villages. We stop in every village on the way.
Honestly, I honestly thought I wouldn't like Transnistria. I was almost regretting coming. I only came because I felt like I was going to miss out on this, cool story about this country that doesn't exist. And I think when I first arrived, I thought this is kind of like overly hyped up that, people play that part up as their kind of trump card. Just saying like, even the hostel I'm staying at is just all decorated with USSR stuff. And after today, I realized, yes, people play it up a bit, to get tourists to come, but this really is their life. Like, we literally saw a girl wearing a USSR t-shirt.
Oh, yeah. How old she was? Was she? 12 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was so curious that I made you ask her where she got that shirt or why she was wearing it, and she
Her
was
father gifted the shirt to her, and yeah. So how many Lenins we saw today? We've seen about 3 Lenins, yeah. And one of them was really big. It's the big bust of Lenin, and a village, which is village 5,000 people population, so small population, but you still have this house of the culture and a huge Lenin in front of the village. They never bothered to take it down, so we preserved the old Soviet street names, and everything is old Soviet and gets more old Soviet if you go outside of Tiraspol.
wow. I didn't know I can get more Soviet than staying on the corner of Lenin Street and Karl Marx Avenue.
Yes. You can get much more Soviet when you go to the village, to a village where people just live their life, and some of them, and I would say most of the people nowadays, they're pro-Russian and they want to get the Soviet times back, and they want some strong leader. They really romanticize the Stalin's time, so they respect Stalin here. Not all of the people, but the majority of people that I've been able to talk to, and they say, "Oh, Stalin was the strong leader, so we want somebody like Stalin be back to Soviet Russia."
So this isn't like there's a lot of places that they kind of hype stuff up for tourism purposes. This isn't that. This really is the way people think and live their life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's weirdly authentic. It really honestly, it really feels like this entire country put on a village costume, and put up these USSR flags.
And Russian flags as well.
And Russian flags.
You saw on the government building now, we even have it under the law that you have to put Transnistria and Russian flag together.
Yeah, and I've been to a lot of villages in Thailand, these village tours, that were bullshit, where you go there and they know you're going there, so they put on traditional village clothing, and so you'll buy their local handicrafts, which are actually imported from China, and then as soon as you leave, they take off their clothes, they put on, their normal outfit, and they go back to their normal life. Here, it's all so much over the top. It almost seems like they're putting on the USSR facade just for tourism, but I know that's not the case because there are no tourists here.
Yeah, it's true. And you saw the babushkas today, and as soon as we left Tiraspol, we went to a village, and you saw the babushka riding her bike in the village. It's very common, bike or either Lada, the old Soviet Lada car. You can see them always in the villages. It's so many of them.
I honestly think by far, this is the most USSR I've seen anywhere. I think the only two ways to see more of what it was like, 20, 30, years ago during the USSR times is maybe there's some small villages in Russia somewhere, or get a time machine. Or I guess, or come to Transnistria.
Or come to Transnistria is cheaper. It is possible. It's actually possible. Time machine is not invaded yet.
Yeah. So, really interesting place. Not the easiest place to do anything. It's the only place in the world where, I guess if I was here longer, I would get a SIM card and it's pretty cheap. But, it's not part of the EU, so none of your EU SIM cards work. It's not part of,
Moldova.
Or, I came from Ukraine, even though it's the border, my SIM card doesn't work here.
Mm-hmm. Just because the sheriff has another system, it's hilarious. But yeah, we have another system, and local phones, they are not even use the SIM card. So you have the chip inside your phone, which is CDMA. It's called in the US.
Which, if you guys remember, the old Nokia phones,
Verizon. Yeah.
I guess Verizon still the only reason to use CDMA in 2018 is because you want to have a monopoly and you
keep monopoly going, because everybody would switch to Moldovan networking or Ukrainian, but they still want monopoly.
Yeah, so the only reason why you would use CDSM or CDM is CDMA is if you want to have a forced monopoly, because SIM cards have been standard for the last 5 years, and everybody, even iPhones have unlocked nowadays.
Oh yeah, Moldova from the beginning, they used to have the SIM card system, but And we just really got used to it. We just really got used to not using any SIM cards, and some people can't. Well, we can't call it a Moldovan cell phone, but it costs much more.
So a lot of other things that are a little bit different here is you guys have credit cards, but it's for Transnistria only. So you guys, like, none of the restaurants take Visa or MasterCard, right?
Yeah, none of them do. They take our local cards, which is owned by guess who?
Owned by the sheriff, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Is it actually called like a sheriff card?
Oh no, it's called Rainbow for some reason, right? Raduga.
Okay.
But anyway, the system is settled up like this. So the sheriff, they pay salary on this card, so they never give cash to people. They just pay by this card.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is crazy. They keep people in the system, in the sheriff system, by putting their salary on a sheriff card.
well, you actually can withdraw money later, but then no people do it. So not much people do it. So people just go and spend their money in sheriff because you have to spend your money in sheriff anyway. So you get this. Can you imagine? You work in the sheriff shop or a supermarket, then you get your salary and you go and spend it where? To sheriff supermarket to buy some food,
Or pay your sheriff's cell phone bill, or
or television, which is belong to sheriff as well.
That is so crazy. This is like a conspiracy that's right out in the open.
Oh yeah.
So another conspiracy that's out in the open is, I don't know if you guys can notice, but we've actually moved locations, and I'm quite a bit more drunk now.
Yeah, I'm feeling that.
So, I guess, I don't know how many, like an hour ago, I guess, in this seamless transition, I think I ran out of space on my computer or something. Anyway, suddenly died. The meetup that we were at suddenly ended. It was with the Austrian artist who's traveling around Europe with a red
Sofa.
polyurethane sofa and taking photos.
Yeah, this is very unique to Transnistria as well. So many people were in the event, and that was nice as well.
So we gave him some of the brandy. Actually, the last sip of our brandy we had, he loved it, and we said, "Oh, why don't we go grab to a restaurant and let's have another bottle?"
This is exactly how you make friends in Transnistria. If you want to hang out with locals and make friends easily, just drink with them. So if you're non-drinker, you shouldn't go to Transnistria.
Yeah, and honestly, you'd be missing out because we had the 5-year-old Clint brandy earlier, and it was very good. It was excellent. Here, they didn't have it, so we had to go up a level. So we ordered the 8-year-old, and it's so good.
Yeah, it's well, you read some information online about it. So that was it was written then it's made by women. Or?
Yeah, so this one, the tagline is made by women for women because it's a bit sweeter, but it's so good. Like, I'll be a woman.
Oh yeah, sure. I don't feel any different. I don't taste any difference because there's another one called Tyros, and it's made by man, but I don't feel actually the much difference.
I wonder if the men for men one is just harsher, and then they're just like selling it, saying, "Yeah, this was the manly one."
Yeah, I think it's just worse and cheaper.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Excellent. And we are at a really nice restaurant. This one's called what? 7 Weekends.
7 Fridays. It means like you have 7 Fridays a week.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. Okay. So 7 Fridays, really beautiful inside. Also, is this one owned by Sheriff?
No, it's actually not owned by Sheriff, but the situation is more complicated because the owner, he owns 2 7 Fridays in the city, in Tiraspol. So it's a chain, you can call it a chain. Then he owns 2 small restaurants, kind of buffet for students called Dolce Vita. And then the owner himself, he's in politics, so he's a deputy here. By the fact that he's in politics, gives him protection. So he's not paying much tax here, or not paying it at all. I think so, supposedly. Because I remember working here, and I've been working here for 2 years, and they never bother me to make legal documents here. I was just working here legally, and no, I can't now prove that I was working here. And the only reason you can get away with this is just being a part of the political system here.
So I actually asked you about that earlier, saying, is it just like one of those things where people do favors for people in politics? Or does the normal guy that doesn't have connections with an oligarch have the chance to survive? And, my kind of theory was there's only 5 restaurants and they're all owned by basically people with political connections. They're all basically these massive kind of, multiple chain, expensive restaurants. Like they take a lot of money to build. My question was, if some random person, so let's say some normal person with a little bit of savings, could they open a restaurant and be competitive? And do you remember what your answer was?
Oh, yeah, so I remember, but the bureaucratic system is so strong here, so you have to go through, if you want to make everything legal and not paying any bribes, it's almost impossible, because the bureaucratic system is so strong, it's so hard to pass, to get through it. So you can't actually do it. You have to either have some connection and avoiding paying bribes, or just pay and spend a lot on the bribes.
You know what? I believe that because there's literally 5 restaurants here. I think if there was a lot more, I would think there's bureaucracy everywhere. People can get through it. It's not a big deal. For example, in Odessa, I'm sure there's a little bit of the bureaucracy, a little bit of bribery, a little bit of people making things easier to get through, sure. Building and stuff like that. Actually, you know what? Not maybe a little bit. There's probably quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's still possible. I really think that in places like Odessa, even in Ukraine, even if you had no connections at all, you didn't want to pay bribes at all, it's still possible to start a profitable restaurant.
But here's you face another thing, that there is not much people to spend money in restaurants. So you think before you open a restaurant, you think, is it worth it to open another one, because we already have 5 and it's not much people here in Tiraspol who are willing to spend their money. So yeah, you just it stops you to make something, because you, first of all, is bureaucratic system. Another one is a nepotism that we have in here, and then it's not much demand, so people not really willing to go somewhere out.
Yeah, I mean, for example, we're the only ones in this whole restaurant right now, and that's
right
why
now,
we're hanging out talking on this podcast.
Yeah. Well, it's Tuesday night, but anyway, it's just it's we the only one.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, then the other problems with, not being able to take bank payments. I had read that there was only one ATM in Tiraspol, but
it gives you Russian rubles. It's connected to Russian banks and gives you Russian rubles, and you still have to go and exchange this Russian ruble to Transnistria, which is very bad currency now. Russian rubles fell, and it's not a good thing to do.
That's actually hilarious, because I thought, you know what? Maybe instead of changing money, I should just go and take some money out of this ATM, get some rubles, but it would have been the wrong rubles.
Well, there's another way to do it. You go to Sheriff Bank, of course, and then you give your card, you give your passport to a lady, which is on the other side of the window, small window, and you wait 10 minutes while she's registered you at the bank as a customer, as the first customer. She registers you at the bank, and then she fills up everything, with the place where you're living, the place where you're staying, the reason where you're staying, and then she can give you the amount of money you're asking for.
And do you have to redo this every time, or once you register, can you just go back and do that again?
Oh, once she registers, she has your name in the base.
Okay, so it's fair trade for the convenience, right?
Yeah. But you still nobody actually returned to withdraw money, because you do it just only once, because people staying here just one night, overnight or 2 nights.
Yeah, I guess for a local it's fine, but for a tourist, that's impossible.
Local don't do it. They better go they spend another 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and they go to Moldovan village where they have international bank system. They have access to the world. So,
well, actually, what I thought that was interesting is when we sat down to have dinner, it was you and I think it was the other Transnistrian guy. Both said, "Oh, we'll be back. We need to go exchange money." And this was at 11 p.m.
11 p.m. Yeah, we have 24 hours exchange offices, because many people they have their what's it called, an additional kind of income, because they have relatives outside of the country, in Moscow, so they just send them money, and it's usually Russian rubles or either euros if they work somewhere in Europe. So we have 24 hours exchange office here working, and besides that, we have every corner has their own exchange office. They're small exchange office, but they just not working 24 hours.
So if I don't spend all my rubles today, all my Transnistrian rubles, and I go tomorrow to Italy, I'm assuming this money's useless.
Oh yeah, if not even, you shouldn't even mention Italy. If you go to Moldova, you can change them. If you just cross the border, which is 20 minutes from here, you can't spend Transnistrian rubles anyhow.
Wow. Okay, so I got to make sure I either spend it or give it to the taxi driver tomorrow morning.
Yeah, there is only one way. You just go to Chisinau. If you really have Transnistrian rubles, if you have them. So you just have to go to some driver who goes all the way to Tiraspol, so Chisinau, Tiraspol, Marshrutka, and the only way you can exchange him some money if he's agreeing to do it.
That's a good hack. If I ever get stuck,
it's actually a hack. Yeah, it's life hack.
So I feel like there's so much more to talk about, but I think we need to wrap this up because we have half a bottle of Clint to finish and a bit of a dinner, but. It's been a really interesting 36 hours in Transnistria. I'm really happy that I stayed an extra day. I was originally honestly going to just come for a day, look around. I think a lot of people do that. But by me staying a whole full day, open-ended, hanging out with you after the tour is done, meeting some locals, going to an event, going here, I feel like I know Transnistria, or at least Tiraspol, a lot better than I would have if I just came for a day trip, which most people do.
Yeah, would you say it's worth the visit, right?
Honestly, if you asked me 24 hours ago, I would say no. I would have said people only come to say they've come. They only come because this is like hyped up,
like Soviet last of USSR kind of thing.
Yeah, and then when you get here, you realize, people are just living a normal life. People have cell phones, people have cars, people are just living a normal life. It almost kind of does seem like strangely normal that people walking around the street, going to jobs, like it's to them, especially them growing up here, this is just like a life. It's almost like they look at you like, why did you come here and what is so interesting?
That's the number one frequently asked questions that people ask me as a tour guide here, because they always ask me why people foreign people come over here to Transnistria because it's not nice. They better go to some nice places in Europe. But because we have many people, as we mentioned before, they don't travel at all, and they don't understand the reason traveling to some let's say shithole country, right? Like third world country, because many people are skeptical. Even here, living here, they're skeptical of their own country.
But I think what a lot of people don't realize is in every country there is beauty to be found.
Oh yeah.
Like here, like seeing the old, cathedral in the little village that you took me to is so beautiful. I actually, that's probably the nicest cathedral I've seen anywhere in the world, and there's no one there.
Yeah, it's and the thing that we kept this old street names, and we have these Lenin statues here. These things I grew up here. I grew up my entire life. I was here. I never noticed it before I started working with tourists. So you just see another Lenin statue, you just ignore it. You just never pay attention to that. And today we saw the what was Kvas van, or what it was. Remember we in the market we saw
so we saw Kvas. So Kvas is a drink, like it's a fermented drink, almost kind of like a Eastern European root beer.
Yeah, it's made of dark bread.
And it was in this like old, like kind of truck thing. Like I can't even explain it. It'd be like this vintage.
Well, you connect
thing.
with the truck, yeah.
Like this weird trailer like device where if you saw this in the U.S., you would think some hipster found this, restored it, and they're like not even really putting any kvass in there. They're just using it as decoration. Here, it's just what they use to transport this drink.
Yeah, and you asked me like, is it seem to be normal for you? And for me, it's really normal. It's just I don't see any difference between this one and the plastic barrel. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all these little tiny things like that. You're just like, wow, this is so different. And what's so nice is it's kind of like a nice mix of seeing how similar people around the world are, even in the most out of the way country. I would argue that Transnistria is one of the most unique countries in the world, yet people are people everywhere in the world. People eat, people sleep, people get married, people have kids, you know, like it, and especially with nowadays the technology and the internet, people are listening to the same music here as they are somewhere, you know, maybe in a lot of places in the world. And there's definitely more similarities than there are differences, but it's those little differences that you stumble upon that blow your mind. And those things can only be found if you spend a little bit more time here, or if you have someone like Roman take you, like a local take you, and really show you the nooks and crannies, the villages, the places kind of out of town. And I would suggest, if you guys come here, don't come here on a day trip from Chinasu on some package tour. Don't drop in just on your own and walk around. Because if I did, I would have reported this very differently. I would have said, this place sucks, don't come. And now I'm very happy to report this place is very interesting and it has its charm. So for the right reasons, I would say, yeah, do it. Why not?
Yeah, totally agree with that. I can't even argue with that.
Yeah. So if people wanted to take one of your tours or get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out?
There's a few ways. There's a Facebook page. It's actually my coworker. So it's called Team Tiraspol. You can find him in the Facebook page. And another way, it's marshostel.com. Marshostel.com. We have a webpage and the internet.
Okay, very cool. So make sure you check out my video on YouTube about Tiranasu. I'll probably write a blog post about it too. You know, I might as well. I'll write a blog post. Check out johnnyfd.com to search Transnistria or I can't even say it anymore. I'm so drunk. Tiraspol.
Tiraspol, yeah.
Tiraspol. And I guarantee it. If you love brandy and you come for just that,
oh yeah,
you'll probably enjoy it. And
besides all of this Lenin statue and all stuff, you will just enjoy drinking.
Yeah, and that's really it. It's been a great episode. Thank you for coming on. Spasiba.
Yeah, thank you. This is my first podcast ever. So I'm the first time on a podcast. So
okay, well, really cool. So bring podcasts all around the world. Oh, we can add this as a country that we've done a podcast in. I'm excited.
Yes.
Okay, so thanks again, guys. See you later, and keep traveling like a boss. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.